Hey guys, this is Gene at DNS Bait. This report is current as of Friday the 13th here. Sorry for the absence of a report last week. It just kind of slipped my mind, and if you guys would call and remind me, I'd make sure I did another one. Anyway, fishing around the chain has been pretty good this last week again, although it did cool off here on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday anyway. So the mornings have been a little slower, but the afternoons seem to pick up good. Up there on Lake Mendota, water temperatures are in the upper 60s. 68, 69, and then lower 70s during the afternoons. Smallmouth are all done spawning and have been pretty active out on the points and bars. Guys are still throwing a lot of plastics, tubes, and Cincos, that kind of stuff, but the leeches are starting to pick up. And they're still using minnows too out here on the chain. Look for some nice sized bass out off Dunn's Bar and Burley Bar. Start looking in those areas that are between 10 and 15 feet of water or so. As far as the bluegill action goes, I did have some reports out here on the lake in the last week. Not so much in the last few days, but last weekend and the first part of the week they did okay. With some shallower fishing at 4 to 5 foot of water, 3 to 5 foot of water. Warner Bay in a couple areas produced a few days in a row. Up in North Shore Bay produced a little bit. Some other good areas to look would be between Second Point and Picnic Point and up by Bishop's Bay. Those are all areas that bluegills will frequent during the spawning periods. Crappies are pretty much all done spawning. I'm sure they've moved out to the outside weed lines, out into that 8 to 12 foot of water. Just drifting with little tubes and minnows has been producing pretty good. Or some guys like to do a little kind of trolling with minnows underneath bobbers, just some slow trolling over those same water depths. Haven't heard any pike action or walleye action to speak of on Lake Mendota. Some incidental walleyes have been caught, but I haven't heard a lot of action. Catfish action has been pretty decent again up in North Shore Bay, up in the river too. I'm also starting to hear some catfish around the lake over by Tenney Park and in Warner Bay, even some catfish action. Off Governor's Island, the guys have been fishing from shore off Governor's Island and taking a few cats too. As far as Lake Monona goes, a lot of bluegill spawning activity still taking place on the lake. Of course, it's day by day with these cooler nights, whether they're going to be active in the mornings or afternoons in that shallow water. But some good areas to look. Still Turville Bay, Squaw Bay, between Turville Point and Olin Park in that area. Over by Wild Haven, down by Sluter Beach. Also, don't forget that Monona Drive area. A lot of guys don't go way up in there, but there's a lot of spawning bluegills up in that area. A lot of the bluegills are actually done spawning too, not all of them, but the first wave, and they've moved out to the outside edge of the weeds, out in that 8 to 10 foot of water, right up against the weeds. Some places that might be 7 foot, but they'll be out on those outside edges of the weeds now, waiting for the main lake to warm up. I did get a couple of reports of some suspended schools of bluegills out in front of Obrick. They didn't stop and fish on them. They just saw them on their electronics. And I've also heard some perch action along some of those weed lines. Sluter Beach, Hudson Park, and over by the Medical Bar. And a little bit over by Wild Haven too. Some perch along the weed line there a couple of days. You can't count on them being there. You just kind of run into them. But there have been some pretty decent sized perch showed up there. Mud Lake still producing some spawning activity on bluegills. Still a few crappies out in a dredge hole. And then on Lake Wabisa, again, look for bluegills shallow between Lake Farm Park and the River Trestle and Green Lantern. By shallow, I mean anywhere from the shore out to 5 or 6 feet of water even. Sometimes you got to get out over those scattered weeds and just do some fan casting. You'll find a few. Look for the crappies to be out on the outside edge of the weeds, out in that 9 to 12 foot of water, maybe even a little deeper off the weeds a little bit. And again, drifting with some tubes and crappie minnows works pretty good for those fish. Walleyes that were biting pretty good out suspended in the lake seemed to have petered out here a little bit. I don't hear much of that action at the moment. Whatever the bug hatch was that was drawing them out there seems to be over right now. So, Lake Kegonsa, I honestly don't have much of a report for you on Lake Kegonsa. Every once in a while I'll hear a little something in the wind, but not enough to put your finger on and not enough to tell you guys that I heard something good. So. That's about it for right now. Those fish that were biting up at Crystal Lake seem to have slowed down a little bit. They're still taking a few crappie and bluegill up there, but the action's not as good as it once was. I still hear some guys catching walleyes up by Tipperary, up on Lake Wisconsin, and I've heard those fishing anywhere from 5 to 8 feet of water, so don't be afraid to look shallow still up in that area. That's about all I got for you right now, so we'll talk to you guys later. You can give me a call at the store if you have any questions, 608-241-4225. Or if you're on the road, want to use our phone fishing report, that's 608-244-3474. That spells big fish. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.